Hello everyone, today we are diving into a fascinating topic that shaped our understanding theory of global politics, the realist theory of international relations. And have you ever wondered why countries act the way they do on the world stage? Well, realism offers some compelling insight, and this theory explored in depth by Arthur Osimir O. Christopher and David Lawson emphasize the role of the state, national interest, and military power in international relations. Let's unpack this theory together. First, let's define the definition of realism. According to the author, realism is a set of related theory that emphasize the role of the state, national interest, and military power in world politics. And now, what are the key assumptions of realism? There are a few critical points to consider. The first one is the first international system in anarchy. That's meaning there's no overarching authority to regulate state behavior. Second, states are viewed as rational and unitary actor, meaning they can act in their own best interest. Last, the principle of self-help governs state behavior, where each state must ensure its own survival. Core concept. One of the core concepts in realism is the balance of power. This idea suggests that the state will always seek to enhance their own capability while undermining the other to maintaining their own stability. As example, during the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in the balance of power strategy to prevent either from becoming too dominant. And additionally, realism focuses on state as primary actor in the international relation, often overlooking the role of non-state actor and international relation. Next, we're going to talk about the criticism of realism. So, however, the realism is not without its critic. Some argue that it failed to predict significant events, such as the end of the Cold War. Critics point out that realism's state-centric approach overlooks the influence of non-state actors and the importance of domestic factors. We acknowledge this criticism but argue that realists view such events as exception rather than failure of the theory. They maintain that realism still provides a robust framework for understanding international relations. What is relevant today? Despite this criticism, realism remains highly relevant till today. It helps us to understand current global issues such as the rising tension between the US and China, where national interests and military power play a crucial role. So realism is a key theory in explaining international relations, offering a valuable insight into state behavior and global policymaking. In the end, we can conclude that we have explored the key of assumption of realism and its core concept, like the balance of power and the criticism it faces. Realism continues to be a vital framework for understanding the complexity of the international relation. If you are interested in delving deeper into this topic, I highly recommend you to read the journal article paper by Osimir O. Christopher and David Lawson. What is the current issue? Can we relate this realism theory? Now we are diving into an intriguing paper titled COVID-19 and International Cooperation, IR Paradigm at Odds by Rajesh Basrur and Freddie Klein. This paper explores how different theories of international relations interpret state responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's get started. The main purpose of this paper is to evaluate the responses of the state during the pandemic through the lens of international relation theory. The author focused on three key theories: realism, liberalism, and constructivism. Each of these theories offer a different perspective on why states behave the way they do in time of crisis. First, let's talk about realism. Realism is a theory that suggests states act primarily in their self-interest within an anarchic international system. This means that there's no central authority to enforce rules, so states are constantly vying for power and security. Key characteristics of realism included a focus on competition, power dynamic, and the idea that states prioritize their own survival. The paper also critiqued other theories, particularly liberalism and constructivism. Liberalism focused on cooperation and interdependence among states, but the reality during the pandemic showed a more competitive nature. This is where realism shines, as it better explains the action of states prioritizing of their own needs over collective action. Constructivism, on the other hand, look at norms and identities but don't fully account the competitive behavior that emerged during crises like COVID-19. The merit realism provides the most accurate framework for understanding state behavior in this context. In the end, we can conclude that this paper highlights the relevance of realism in understanding how states respond to global challenge like COVID-19 pandemic. It suggests that realism not only explains current dynamic but also offer a valuable insight for future policy responses to the global crisis. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.